Welcome back to Leeds Lately. In today's video, we're going to be reacting to some of the new stadium expansion photos that have just come out. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that big red button. Now, I don't know if you'll remember, a couple of years ago, my most viewed video ever was the first time I talked about this on the channel when the initial plans were first ever spoke about, and that was on the square ball when I bumped into Angus Kinnear outside the ground. And yeah, a lot's happened since then, but not much in the way of stadium development because of the relegation down to the Championship again. So it is exciting to see that we have got some proper images of what the ground's going to look like. Now, I don't think some of the surroundings, you'll see them on the screen now, but I don't think some of the surroundings to the stadium are completely accurate. So it is quite hard to tell which way round it is from the outside, given that there's no kind of recognisable landmarks. But to me, it looks like they might have a proper entrance on one side, which is towards the old car park. Looks like it's having a completely modernized entrance, and then on the other side, on actual Elland Road, which I can see here, looks pretty similar to what it already did. So that one won't have too much of a redevelopment at this point, apparently. But the the west stand, where all the changing rooms are, all the commentators' boxes, all the press boxes, anything like that is all being redeveloped along with some of the other stands as well. But we've, like I say, got some images here for the first time, and it does look nice. It looks so much better than it looks at the moment. I know so many Leeds fans have, well, wanted it to stay the same stadium because of the atmosphere and everything that it brings. But when you actually look at the stadium from the outside as it is at the moment, it's not falling down, but it's probably only the next category up from that. So to modernise it and make it all look uniform as well, because there's so many different materials used in the building as it is. So at least if they were to kind of make it look all uniform, it would look like a proper football stadium that belongs in the 21st century. The other thing is as well that on the inside of the stadium, you can see here, it looks like the cop is going to be a two-tiered cop. Now, a lot of people liked the idea of having it like a Spurs at the Spurs stadium, where they have one continuous tier that goes all the way from the bottom all the way to the top of the stand. It looks like on the concept photos, it's going to be two-tiered. But having said that, it still looks really, really good. You've still got the corner bits connecting it together, so the atmosphere should give that kind of bowl effect. As you can see on the screen as well in the top right, by the way, and I didn't notice this until someone pointed out on Twitter, that they put the 6-0 scoreline, Leeds against Stoke, in the top corner, so that was a good touch for them to add in there as well, especially because it got us promoted. The complaints that people have had so far about this is that it looks too much like Anfield, that the kind of the metalwork over the top of the stands and stuff looks very similar to Anfield. Apparently it's the same architect has been involved in this process, but you would or me personally, I would much rather have a stadium like this that looks like a football stadium than whatever the hell that thing that that Scum put out was, where it just looked like a giant tent with kind of like a couple of different bits holding it up. It was so odd. Some of the other ones as well, I think it's the Allianz Arena. It's either the Allianz Arena, Bayern Stadium, or Juventus is also the Allianz Stadium or something like that. And it's like this weird geometric star thing with things sticking out of it at odd angles. This looks like an actual football stadium, and I don't think, given the kind of supporter base that Leeds have and the kind of general way that Leeds fans think, I don't think that people would have been too happy if it would have looked kind of like this space age arena. And I think you would have had probably a similar situation to when they released the Gaviscon badge a few years ago, and everybody was completely in uproar. At least this looks like a proper stadium. The capacity will be increasing from 37,000 up to 56,500 is what was said. But I think because some of those are going to be corporate seating, I think for general admission it'll be 53,000. I think is the official number that it'll go up to. But obviously there's 26,000 people on the waiting list, so a big portion of that expansion of the stadium will be filled out by season ticket holders, which of course is great for them, being on that list for so many years and finally getting a chance. It'll probably take a few years before we see anything like this in the flesh, but it is good to finally see some actual concept art for what the stadium might look like. And I tweeted out the other night when I saw the picture of it, whilst the sun's setting and it's in the lights. Imagine Champions League nights, or even just Europa Conference League at this point, we would absolutely love. Imagine European nights in this stadium. It would be certainly something to head for, and it shows the level of ambition that we're going for now that we're definitely promoted back to the Premier League. I know that they've probably had these concept photos for a while and have been trying hard not to have anyone leak them, but these concept photos now that we've actually got promoted have been released whilst everybody's happy, because could you imagine if we got playoffs and then they released them? I think there would be one or two people having one or two things to say about it. But let me know what you think of the stadium down in the comments below. I thought it was good to cover this because, like I said, we've covered it a few times before about updates and things, but we finally got some concrete evidence that we're going to get a bigger stadium and expand the old one, which I think was the right decision as well, rather than building a new one. I know there's limited space around Elland Road, but to make it bigger would just be the best thing, because the atmosphere hopefully will be kept whilst being in the Premier League, and hopefully increasing revenue as well. I know when I talked about the original video, I talked about the Spurs stadium, which was when we were still in the Premier League, and they were taking so much more money in on gate receipts that allowed them to balance the books in other ways for spending money on transfers and stuff. So it would be a massive help financially for Leeds to be able to buy more players, to be able to stay within PSR. So it's not just about having a stadium that more fans can go to, it's about the club's financials as well, and it would help us massively to overcome PSR, which is why a lot of the time some of the higher clubs in the league who have in the Premier League who have the bigger stadiums are able to spend more money, because they take more money in on gate receipts and stuff, as well as sponsors. So it's interesting, and hopefully before too long we start to see the stadium get redeveloped. Let me know what you think, like I said, down below in the comments. I'll be live at the weekend for the final game of the season, so don't forget to come and join me there. Thanks for watching Leeds Lately, and I'll see you in the next one.